Buy-to-let, thatched, commercial. We're your high street insurance brokers for all types of insurance. Avoid faceless internet firms.
High House Insurance, do it face to face.
See Neil and the friendly team at High Street Selsey.
High House Insurance, do it face to face.
Or call Selsey 606 552.
Hello, this is Mary Kennedy welcoming you to this week's programme. We will start with 4 short interviews with Mike Nicholls about community initiatives. That's followed by a story from the Selsey Scribblers and gardening tips from Giles. Hugh has interviewed the lifeboat's coxswain Martin Rudwick. Ellis is reviewing Rudyard Kipling's Just So stories, and this week's musical interlude from The Essentials is Soul Survivor. So over to Mike.
Good morning, my name's Thea, and this morning I'm going to speak to Mike Nicholls, and he's going to tell us all about the exciting things that are going on in Selsey. Mike.
Good morning, Thea.
Good morning. Mike, I wonder if you could tell us first of all about the Arts Forum.
Yes, very gladly. The Arts Dream has been going for a few months in Selsey to try and encourage and support all the many good things that go on in the various branches of the arts in Selsey and the district. And recently we formed an Arts Forum. We held the first one in November. About 30 people came together, and the aim, just for an hour, was to share information about what different groups had planned, to have discussion about new ideas that people had for things that they'd like to see develop, and then to see how we can take them forward. And we've got the second of these forums next week on January the 21st, 7:30 in the town hall, and then for those who might miss that, the next one on March the 25th. So every couple of months we come together, anyone's welcome, and it's just an hour to support and plan together.
Right, you say support and plan together. What exactly are you planning? Is it music, dancing? You say arts?
Yes, well, there are already obviously a number of very good organisations in Selsey that put on regular shows. The SACOS, the Cloud9 Theatre Company, and other groups who have their regular slots in Selsey life. But there are obviously people who want to develop new things in painting, perhaps in drama. We've just launched the community choir, for instance. So a whole range of things. At the last forum, the Camera Club and the art group decided they'd get together to do some joint work, and 2 people discovered that they both enjoyed wood carving, so we might even get a wood carving group.
Oh, that would be interesting. Mike, can anybody turn up who may be just looking for something to involve themselves in?
Yes, I mean, it's literally meant to be an open and inclusive opportunity for anyone to come and either find out what's already going on or make suggestions about what they might like to contribute or to see develop. So, for instance, last week I met 2 representatives of the Alzheimer's Society from Worthing who wanted to find out what was happening in Selsey. And as a result of that conversation, I was able to put them in touch with a music specialist who might be willing to do some work in music and song for people with dementia and their carers. And it's just trying to link people together and help people to develop as they want to.
It sounds brilliant. Could you remind us again of the date and the time and the venue?
Yeah, the immediate one is next Tuesday, the 21st of January, 7:30, Selsey Town Hall. And the one after that, which will be in the same venue and at the same time on the same day of the week, is on the 25th of March. So every couple of months we do advertise it in Selsey Life and on the ArtStream website.
Thank you, Mike. Hello, it's Thea again. And once more I'm going to be speaking to Mike Nicholls, and he's going to tell us today about the Community Forum. Mike, good morning.
Good morning, Thea.
Now, the Community Forum, it sounds very interesting. What is it?
I'm sure it is. It probably sounds a bit formal too to those who are listening. But the story is that 3 years ago we formed a link or community forum with a view to inviting representatives of organisations to come together in order to find out what each other was doing, to encourage and support each other, because most of these folk are volunteers, and to try and see whether there were new things in Selsey that might be developed. So, for instance, when it all started, the key issue was the fact that the youth wing was going to close and the youth workers were going to be lost. So out of that, an organisation called Youth Dream was formed, and the forum supported that as it developed, along with the town council and others. And now they are partnering with Snack Shack. We have a youth worker, and the ground is being regained for the benefit of our young people. And over the last 3 years, a number of organisations have developed out of that forum, and we've now got actually other groups that meet to look at the same purpose with the arts. We've developed a Selsey Community Watch to help the problem of loneliness in our community. We have a little funding forum to see what pots of money might be available to Selsey organisations, and a youth forum that brings the young people's groups together. So it's all about helping people to work together and to give each other encouragement for what they do.
I did come along to the last one. Now, there was one particular item that I found particularly interesting. It was to do with the meals that are delivered to vulnerable people.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a slight problem with Julie's Kitchen, is it called?
Julie's Kitchen Dinner, yep.
Julie, she had suddenly lost her kitchen that they used to cook various meals for. And she was asking, was there anyone who could let them have a kitchen? And I think there has been some advance on that, hasn't there, Mike?
Yes, I mean, it's a fairly typical situation. I mean, obviously there are a number of providers that offer people sort of ready meals in their own home. Julie's Kitchen Dinner is one of those locally who work with volunteers to deliver meals, particularly to vulnerable older people who appreciate that every day. And they'd lost their kitchen, so they're cooking from home. They have volunteers who help them deliver the meals, and we've been able to put them in touch with a local organisation who might be able to help them in the provision of a kitchen. And that's the kind of thing that the forum does. You find someone has a need, someone else pops up with a suggested kind of answer, and that often happens with local issues.
That sounds brilliant. Mike, the other thing that I was very interested in, there was a lot of talk about the Royal Naval Association and their involvement, keeping people in touch with one another.
Yep. Interestingly, the Royal Naval Association have just won the Selsey Business Partnership Voluntary Group of the Year. They are an excellent group, about 90 people, and one of the ideas that is used on a sort of wider basis is that if people would like, they can engage occasionally in what they call a conference telephone call, where they might link up about 8 members for about an hour and just enable them to chat to each other. That's a service provided by the Royal Naval Association. But it got us thinking, and in Glasgow, for instance, there's something called Good Morning Glasgow, where people can opt into a telephone service where they get a phone call every day, just to make sure they're all right, but also to have a little chat with them if they would like that. So we're contemplating, as part of this Selsey Community Watch, the possibility of something like that in our town, and we're going to be discussing that at the next meeting, which will be on the 29th of January. That's sort of Wednesday, the last Wednesday of the month. And we always hold it at 4:15 in the Academy School, just so that some of the teachers can join us and share in the forum.
Thank you, Mike. That's a question I was going to ask you. You've already answered it.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll speak to you again soon.
Thank you.
Hello, Thea here. Mike has come in again, and today he's going to tell us all about the cricket club. Mike.
Good morning, Thea. Thank you. The Selsey Cricket Club, in different formats, has actually been around since 1834. At the moment, there's a little group of the club with some help from other people who are actually researching the history of the club, and we're putting together a little exhibition in the pavilion, partly in honour of the history of the club, which will be 180 years old this year, but also in honour of Sir Patrick Moore, who was a member of the club and played for about 40 years once he moved to Selsey in the late 1960s.
As far as the club itself goes, it's a lovely old building, but is it suitable for the amount of people that are likely to use it now?
Well, the club this season will run about 12 different sides, 7 of them for boys and girls, 1 for ladies, 3 or 4 adult teams, and the pavilion, which was a temporary building when it was erected and has been maintained by some wonderful volunteers. Yes, it's adequate, and at the moment we're redecorating it and getting it ready for the new season, but ultimately we're working on a project in partnership with the football club that we hope will result in a new pavilion and changing rooms in the future.
That sounds good. You said you are a keen cricketer, I believe.
I've always played cricket, and I'm a bit old for it now, but I still umpire and do various other things for the club, and have had a particular interest in developing this project. We've just completed phase 1 of it, which was to completely renovate the present football clubhouse, so it's been re-roofed and damp's been dealt with and other things. It's a much cosier, warmer, cost-effective building now. And the next phase, we hope this year, we've raised the money to put up some new storage facilities in partnership with the town council, and then we hope in the next year or two to raise the money to build some new changing rooms for the football and cricket clubs and a new cricket pavilion. What will happen to the old building when that happens, we're not sure. It might have to be demolished, but equally it could be used in the future for, it's old enough to be a museum, for instance, for the town, so you never know. But no, there's a good spirit in the club, a lot of good things happening.
So it's very, very positive for the cricket club, very positive for all the sports people in Selsey. Maybe soon we'll have a rugby club.
Well, that's a possibility, but there's a good one in Chichester, and there are a lot of local people who go and play for them, including 1 or 2 of the cricketers. Yes.
Thank you, Mike.
My pleasure.
Good morning, Thea here, and I'm going to speak to Mike Nicholls, and he's going to tell us all about the sports stream, starting with football.
Good morning, Thea.
Good morning.
Yes, Selsey is very fortunate in having a very strong football club and a junior football club, the Selsey Seals Football Club. Between them, they run about 13 or 14 teams from age 6 right through to some of the players I would think are now into their 40s and still going. The top team plays in the Sussex County League, and the junior ones in the local Chichester and Arran League. It's a very well run club, probably over 200 children and young people and adults play regularly, and a vast army of parents and grandparents that manage and coach and support the teams, and the generosity of the academy school that lets us use their pitches free of charge, which helps to keep costs down for local families to belong.
It sounds to me as if the academy is very good at getting involved in the local things, and particularly with the sports things. I believe they actually let them use one of their fields.
Yes, there is a good partnership, and it works both ways. Community invests in the school, and they let their facilities, their sports hall and their fields and so on, be used by various groups. And interestingly, on March the 16th, they are hosting a 10-kilometre race, an athletics race. Probably be about 400 runners taking part on a Sunday morning, and that's the kind of partnership that goes on in the sports area with the school.
I think the other day I heard you say something about children with learning difficulties, and they have special days when they can go and play football, and it's very good for them, I imagine. Yeah,
on a Friday night at 6 o'clock in the Academy Sports Hall, you'll find up to 20 children and their families having some fun football together. These are children with things like Down syndrome, that kind of thing, and they can be in a secure environment, really let off steam for an hour, and they've also developed good skills and teamwork, and have recently started playing in some Sussex tournaments. And it's interesting, but Selsey is the only community football club that actually runs something like that. So it's something quite unique, and it indicates that the club, are inclusive. They have football for girls as well as boys. They have this opportunity for children with special needs, and they do try and be a real family club.
So it looks as if football in Selsey is really thriving.
It's going very well, and the local schools all have their sort of lunchtime and after school clubs, children taking part in good physical activity and team games. It's a very positive thing for our community.
Good. Thank you, Mike.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Now for our short story.
Welcome to Theo Foote, who's a member of Selsey Writer Circle, that I refer to irreverently as Selsey Scribblers. And they've just had their annual short story competition, and Thea's going to read to us a story called The Journey by the winner, who was Pam Swanson. Okay, let's hear the story then, Thea.
The Journey. The old man struggled with his seatbelt, gnarled, paper-white fingers fumbling to locate the buckle. He looked tired and dishevelled in an open-net shirt, the collar frayed beneath a crumpled grey cardigan. The clothes hung loosely on his thin frame. His hands trembled to his lap as Stephen reached over to help. His hand, strong and nut brown from many hours in the sun, clicked the belt into place. There, safe and sound now. Where are you taking me? The thin purple lips mumbled, Where are we going? Stephen sighed, gazed at his father. Bright blue eyes, clouded by impending blindness, looked vacantly back, bewildered, grey eyebrows raised in question. To the home we looked at last week, Dad. Marriott Lodge, remember? Stephen's face, equally as tanned as his hands, showed early signs of ageing. Crow's feet around the eyes, fine lines at the corner of his lips. His hair was greying at the temples. He too looked tired, but in a different way from his father. Stephen turned the key. The van puttered momentarily, then stopped. Damn thing! He turned the key again, and this time the engine fired into life. The old man fiddled with his seatbelt. It's done up now, no need to check it. Where did you say we were going? His father sounded stronger and more cheerful. It's a surprise. Stephen's mouth smiled. A magical mystery tour. But his eyes turned away as he spoke, and the van left the bungalow with the red door and the tidy garden behind in a cloud of white smoke. It was a short journey, but slow through the heaving traffic. The van wanted to stall it when idling, so Stephen had to keep the revs up. His feet constantly employed on clutch and accelerator. It was as though the car was as reluctant as he was to make the journey to the rest home. It had seemed the only answer to his father's steady decline, but now the time had come and he really wasn't so sure. His father craned his bird-like neck to look at the roadworks. What happened to the co-op store? He asked, suddenly staring at the shiny office building beside the traffic lights, denying their progress. Oh, it got pulled down a couple of years ago. Stephen's foot was aching from constant use of the clutch, so he put the car into neutral, wondering if the red light was stuck on. No! His dad shook his head. I was in there the other day, getting some cake for your birthday. No, mate, that co-op's been gone a long time. Maybe it was the Tesco Express on the corner. No, it was the co-op, all right. I know where I went shopping. A gleam came into the old man's eyes, and his lips turned down at the corners. Course. Stephen changed up into second gear, nudging slowly forward, then more freely as they came through on the other side of the roadworks, onto a bit of dual carriageway. You're trying to fool me. Where are you taking me? I asked you that before. Where are we going? To the home. I've told you. The brown hands, fingers sausage thick, gripped the steering wheel tightly. You're going to like it there. I want to go home. The purple lips pursed. Frail hands feeling for the seatbelt once more. Don't undo your seatbelt, it's dangerous. I want to go home. Stephen's neck reddened. Small beads of sweat began to pour from his upper lip. He'd been told to arrange ambulance transport, a carer, and some sedation, perhaps. But he couldn't do that. He had to take the old man himself, see him safely there, make sure he was happy, well, content at least. It was his responsibility. He heaved broad shoulders. That's where I'm taking you. Turn here, his father snapped, grasping at Stephen's elbow. Here, this is it. Somehow, in all the fog that had inhabited his brain, he had managed to recognize the familiar road. Older, terraced houses of red brick, row on row, with alleys running at the backs of them, long, thin gardens and steps up to the front doors. We're not going that way, but Stephen's father grabbed his arm and the van slewed round the corner in third gear. For Christ's sake! Stephen also recognised the road from his childhood. He could picture the games of cricket he'd played with friends Kumlesh and Bipin. England versus Pakistan. Could smell the pungent aroma of curry mixed with roast beef and cabbage. Not much looked to have changed. A football hurtled across the road in front of them, two boys gesturing abuse at the van that had spoilt their game. Stephen watched them give the V sign in his rear-view mirror. Relieved he hadn't run them over. His heart thudded in his chest. I could have killed those bloody kids. Pull over, here it is. His father gestured at number 26. The lights were still on behind the starched white net curtains. They'd always been dark houses. Stephen stopped the van, but didn't move from his seat. How much do I owe you? His father reached into his pocket for a wallet that wasn't there. Stephen had had to take all of his father's money away. It would have been lost otherwise, or given away like this to a taxi driver that wasn't. You don't live here anymore. What you on about? I want to see Cynthia. I've missed her, you know, since I've been away. Oh, come on, I'll introduce you. The previously slow hands made quick work of getting out of the van, and his father was at the door of the house before Stephen could stop him. He knocked loudly with the brass lion's head, and a dark face appeared at the flicked-back curtain. An Asian woman stared at them suspiciously, but the old man was reassuringly impotent in appearance. She quickly opened the door. Yes, can I help you? The old man blinked, trying to look round her into the small, dark hallway. Is Cynthia in? Sorry, no Cynthia here. The Asian woman's words were spoken with a heavy accent. Stephen guessed that she had been born in the UK and lived there all her life. Tears welled in his father's eyes. The woman surveyed him silently, looking at Stephen now for an explanation. He's a bit confused. He used to live here years ago. Cynthia was his wife. The Asian woman smiled. Her eyes lit up in understanding. Ah, I see. She bent down and took the old man's hands in hers. He looked up at her like a child. You want a cup of tea? She gestured into the house. Have a look around. No, don't worry, love. Stephen took his father's arm. Come on, we should get on. The old man resisted him. "A cup of tea will be lovely," his father smiled. "I'm parched." Inside it was warm and smelt of incense. The woman led them into the small sitting room. It was laid out just as it had been 30 years before. An elderly woman sat in a rocking chair wearing a pink sari with fluffy grey slippers on her feet. Steely grey hair was pulled back into a bun. Black-rimmed glasses framed dark, watery eyes. "This is my mother. Why don't you take a seat?" The two men sat on the floral sofa, looking into the flames of the gas fire. The old lady spoke to them in her own language, chattering on about something animatedly. Albert nodded and smiled as though he understood every word. Stephen stared down at his heavy toe-cap boots, wondering if he should have taken them off. It didn't matter that the old woman couldn't speak any English. Her meaning was clear. She took down 2 framed photographs. One was a girl in a university gown and mortarboard, holding a certificate. The other of a younger boy in uniform. She smiled proudly. Stephen's dad looked over at him. "I don't have a photo, do I?" Stephen reached into his back pocket and took out his wallet. He handed his father a passport photo of a teenage girl. "Ah, Kelly." The old man smiled broadly. "She's having a baby." Stephen couldn't hide his surprise. His father had travelled in time from the days married to his wife Cynthia 30 years before, when they'd lived in the house. Now it belonged to the Patel family. He'd travelled to a few weeks ago, and the announcement of his granddaughter, that at 16 she was having her first baby. "Lovely lass she is," beamed the old man. "Make her lovely, ma'am." The tea was welcome, sweet and hot in the cold morning. Stephen was glad of it and found himself talking to the younger Asian woman more openly than he would have done to his closest friends, though he couldn't bring himself to tell her that they were on an interrupted journey to a nursing home. There his father would be looked after by strangers. She just wouldn't have understood. "It is difficult looking after an old one," she whispered, "and sad when they get confused," nodding at his father. "Sometimes it is lonely, even when they are with you all the time." Back outside the house, the air seemed colder, the day more damp and dank than it had before. Stephen's father sat quietly in the car, seatbelt firmly in place, his head nodding in sleep 2 minutes into the remaining journey. They arrived at the entrance to the home, a security gate with an intercom to keep out intruders, but also to keep in the aged residents. It seemed different to Stephen this time. It had felt safe before. Now it felt like the end. His father was still asleep. The activity of the morning had taken its toll. He smiled slightly, as though recalling some happy memory. His hands relaxed in his lap, fingers still curled around the photo of Kelly. Stephen pressed the intercom button, feeling a tightness around his chest, reaching for his antacids. "Good morning," a voice emanated bodilessly from the wall. "Welcome to Marriott Lodge. Who's calling?" Stephen hesitated. "Hello," the voice repeated. The car reversed away from the gates and joined the traffic heading back to the bypass. They jolted to a stop at the traffic lights, and his father opened his blurry eyes. "Where are we going? Where are we going?" "It's okay, Dad. We're going home." Stephen smiled, gently placing a broad brown hand on the old man's arm.
And here is Giles with this week's tips for the garden.
Giles is back in the studio and he's telling us what we're going to do from February the 9th. All right, Giles, what are we going to do?
Hello, good afternoon, Hugh. Nice to be back here in the game. What we're going to do, well, looking around outside, lambing is, we're very countrified near where we live here. Lambing is in full swing now. They're enjoying their brief little lives, but they're having a good time right now, and it's nice to watch in the fields as we drive around. On the 14th, Valentine's Day, birds like humans used to, I think, are reputedly choose their partners on the 14th.
Really?
Birds do that anyway, yeah, and they decide after that before they get their nest going, and we've got the blackbirds, chaffinches, thrushes, robins, larks, and all the rest of it now are in full song. So in other words, a great time of year to go out at sunset or dawn and listen to the birds in the right place. And the dawn choruses and the evening choruses at its at its height.
It's lovely, isn't it?
It's lovely. It's not so good here where we live in Selsey. You've got to go out in the country to get the real effects.
Yeah.
Because obviously Selsey's good, but it tends to get overrun by the seagulls somewhat. But if we go out to say somewhere like Sidlesham, get out in the country a bit more, then we can go.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Giles. We were coming home down Grafton Road.
Yeah.
You know, up from the Fisherman's Joy.
Yeah.
And we were coming down there, down Grafton Road. It was about, I suppose, we'd been shopping in Chichester, and it was about 10:30, maybe 11 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Guess what we saw on the road? A huge roe deer.
Oh my goodness! No, I wouldn't have nowhere to guess that.
So,
Goodness me!
Right in the centre of the
Gosh,
town.
it had gone off track, hadn't it?
Yeah.
Goodness me!
And a friend of mine saw.
Well, I hope it survived all right.
Oh, it was fine. It just looked at me, walked across, and jumped over the fence into someone else's garden.
Yeah, I hope it. No, I mean, I hope it got away from Selsey or into the country again.
Well,
they didn't have a mishap somewhere.
Another friend of mine's was in the co-op car park at about 10:30 one night, and saw another deer.
Oh, how odd.
So maybe are they coming in from the country?
Well, they obviously are. Yeah. Oh, they are.
Well, I know we've got foxes, but now we've got deer as well.
No, it's a bit worrying in a sense because they're so likely to sort of get knocked down or whatever. But well, most interesting though. Yeah, I mean they obviously are coming in because I know there are deer around our area.
But you wouldn't expect to see them in a day.
No, I wouldn't, not at all, and certainly not around here.
Yeah.
No, it's a shame you didn't have a camera with you. But,
you never do have a camera with you.
No, on these occasions, no, you don't. Moles are now waking up. So if you get these little molehills turning up on the lawns, you'll know why now. They're back at work. Out in the garden, finish pruning, if not already done so, all apples and pears, and also apply a winter wash to kill off any pests because they do accumulate in the bark.
Right, okay.
So do that. Also, for any bare-rooted trees, deciduous shrubs or trees, finish planting them round about now. Bare-rooted are probably better because, they're better, but they are considerably cheaper than container-grown plants, put it that way.
Okay.
Bare roots, obvious plants, the problem is they can't be done all the year round, whereas obviously container plants can.
Mm-hmm.
Bare-rooted stock actually quite often can be as good or better than container-grown stock because it's starting from scratch. It's not being contained in anything, in other words, and therefore you're going to get a very quick growth, quicker probably than when you transfer a container.
Okay.
I suppose I'm sticking up for bare-rooted stock, but I think anyway. They're both very good, and also if you got any hellebores in the garden, clear away any old leaves around them because they tend to rot off a bit, some of them. Apply a mulch, and also hellebores do throw up quite a lot of little ones around the sides. So if you want to, take some of those up and pot some of these little seedlings up, and you can use them later on.
That's a good idea.
It is. It saves a lot of money as well. The saying for this month is two little things: clear ponds of any residue that might have fallen, and make sure that's done now. And this is just a little innuendo. Don't leave wallflowers out of the garden spring flowers want partners.
All right, Joel. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next week.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Giles, and over to Hugh.
I'm in the Selsey lifeboat station, and I'm talking with Martin Rudwick, who's the coxswain of the Selsey lifeboat. Martin, how long have you been coxswain?
I've been coxswain full time now for 16 years, and I've been on the boat as a crew member for 41.
That's the truth.
Yeah. So
And what were you doing before you became coxswain?
I was at sea fishing,
Okay.
working for some of the local fishermen when I was a young lad, and then eventually ended up with my own boat and own business,
Right.
and then came ashore.
What decided you? Obviously, you were a member of the crew anyway.
Yeah.
So what decided you to give up your fishing and then become a full-time coxswain?
It was a combination of things, really. I could see a downward trend at that time in the fishing industry. Not so much in the catch levels, but
Yeah.
there was just a downward general trend. Things were getting more and more difficult. It was becoming more and more crowded. There was a greater element of greed amongst the fishermen, which inevitably leads to a bit of nastiness and that. And the job wasn't the same, really, as when I took it on as a boy, which it was a job in a million. So I'd probably seen the best of it in that sense. And when I first joined the lifeboat crew, it never really occurred that I could ever end up as coxswain, because in those days it was mainly based on old fishing families and a bit of nepotism and handed down father to son, etc. But those days are long gone now, and the opportunity arose for me to take the job full time.
Okay.
And it's...
Yeah, but why did you decide to do it?
I think because of the lure of actually being the coxswain.
Okay.
I was already sort of 24 years on the boat as crew and second coxswain and that, and you think, well, you try and strive to reach the top in everything you try and do, I think. So, and it's not I don't look at it as a glory job, but it is I consider it quite a prestigious job. There's only 140 odd coxswains in the country, so we're fairly unique, and it's a great job. The job satisfaction is, 9 times out of 10 it's fairly mundane, but there's that odd time where you go, and it's not just me, it is the crew as well. We work as a team, but you go, and if you do happen to save somebody's life, that'll stay with me for the rest of my life.
Yes, I'm sure.
And it is a sense of achievement and a sense of helping other people. So I feel I'm lucky in the sense that I had a really good fishing career and saw the fishing at its best. And now I've got a job which is a job in a million again.
So you've been blessed twice then?
I have, yeah, really.
So that's good.
Yeah, if I'm honest, yeah. It's.
Right. So we're going to get a new boat soon, aren't we?
Yep.
And that's going to be, well, you're going to tell me all about that in a bit. Before we begin, Martin, what's going to happen to the boathouse?
The boathouse, I think it's inevitable, will be taken down, dismantled, and the seabed returned to as it was before the boathouse was built here, which is in the terms... So
there'll be nothing sticking out the ground?
No, that's in the terms of the lease with Crown Estates, that if it's no longer used as a lifeboat station, then it has to be dismantled and returned, the seabed returned to as it was before they leased the ground to us.
I'm sure you've heard the same rumours that I've heard. People have been talking about a fish restaurant and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
I wonder what you thought about that. And can you imagine anybody coming out along the catwalk?
Not on a
in the middle of the night,
rainy January night. I think you could get a few cancellations on your table bookings on that night if it turns out to be false 8 and pouring with rain. I can't see people walking out in their finery to eat fish, but it's a lovely idea. But it's not. I don't think it's feasible. The boathouse was designed as a lifeboat boathouse, and that's it. There's lack of health and safety. Access really for if it was a fire, what do you do? Do you jump over the side? You've got a choice, you either burn or you drown. So there's going to be things like that. That's not the only way it could possibly be converted. I think would be a private residence, and that would have to be totally nothing to do with the RMI. They don't want to. They want to walk away from this boathouse with no connection to it whatsoever. But it'll also, there is a chance that it'll impinge on the operation of the new lifeboat as well. With the launching of it, so I don't think it's feasible really.
How much does it cost to maintain the lifeboat? Slipway or what?
We're told on average it's about £220,000 a year over the year.
So that would have to be added to the running cost of running a restaurant, wouldn't it?
It would, yes.
It's not on, is it?
Not really, no. I mean, whilst the boathouse is fairly sound, it would need an awful lot of work to convert it into anything other than a boathouse. You know, the windows leak in a strong gale of wind and things like that. There's no insulation. There's no real heating out here and all that. So
and you've got to get drainage, haven't you?
You've got to get drainage, the lot for
It's on.
Not really, no.
Not feasible.
No. So it's going to cost you a lot if you bob to take it down. But that's how it needs, has to be.
So we've lost the lifeboat slipway, and we're going to have a new lifeboat slipway where?
Well, we're going to have a beach launch, carriage launch lifeboat, the Shannon class, which is a major leap forward for us from the boat we've got, and that will be tracked out over the beach with a big hydraulically tracked driven vehicle pushing a hydraulically driven, and it will be driven as well, the carriage, which the boat will be sat on. It will trundle down the beach to the tide, wherever the tide may be, and then the carriage can tip to create a slight slipway effect,
right?
And it will be launched into the sea from that point. But it can go into the sea up to a depth of, it can be submerged, but obviously not running to 9 metres if we get it wrong, and we have to leave it there. But the Super Cat's probably capable of going into the water up to 2 or 3 metres deep, which is more than enough to float the boat. So
there's the Cat itself, the caterpillar driven vehicle, and then in front of that there is
there's a carriage, basically a boat trailer, boat trailer,
but it's at the front rather than the back.
It's at the front. It's pushed in so that we can launch obviously forward, bow first down into the sea,
and it tips.
And that carriage, that trailer itself, is power driven. It's not just pushed along by the unit behind. It's all linked together, and it's got tracks that drive as well as the tracked vehicle that's pushing it along as well. It's all in unison.
Where is this going to live?
It's going to live in where the existing inshore lifeboat station is at the moment, in the museum. That will all come down, and the boat park that's next door, which belongs to the district council at the moment, they're going to lease that ground to us, and the new building will be built on there.
So the boat and the tractor will live in the boathouse.
Yeah, and the inshore lifeboat, and they'll also be incorporated.
And the inshore lifeboat.
Yeah, they'll be all in together in 2 separate boat halls. And then on one side it will be all the changing room, the crew room upstairs. There'll be an engagement space for visitors, etc. And down below that on the ground floor there'll be a retail shop. So everything's going to be incorporated into one building.
So what's the basic difference between the old boat and the new boat?
Main thing is speed.
Right.
That is, it will be doing 28 knots. In fact, on trials at the moment, she's doing 30 knots.
Right.
As opposed to 18.5 for the time class. But one of the other main changes are that it's going to be water jet driven, so there'll be no propellers and no rudders.
No propellers and no rudders?
No propellers, no rudders. No.
So how are you going to steer it?
The jets are variable. They rotate, so you steer it on the jets itself.
Okay.
So, and far more manoeuvrable than this one is. Although this is, don't get me wrong, I'm not running this one down. It's a fantastic boat. It really is. But the Shannon is a step forward. There's no doubt about it.
So if it's driven by jets and you haven't got the risk of fouling propellers or hitting them, does that mean you can come closer inshore?
It does, and I mean, both the classes of boats, the existing Tyne and the Shannon, are both designed to actually be driven aground. We can drive them aground if we need to get to casualties, etc. But with the Tyne, there is always a danger that you'll hit something, a lump of rock stuck up out of the seabed, which, instead of it being a flat seabed, you've only got to get something that's a foot, 15 inches high, and we'll tip the propellers or we may bend a rudder. But with the water jets, we won't have that problem.
Okay.
The problem we'll have is pumping shingle through the actual jets, but they're designed to do that. So, although it damages them, it will still run. It will pump stones through it and out the back. So.
Right. What about? Do you have thrusters at the front?
No. It's the jets make it so manoeuvrable. They don't feel there's a need for a bow thruster on a boat of this size. Some of the bigger classes of boat do have a bow thruster. Right. The 7 and the Tamar.
So, will you and the crew have to be completely retrained?
Pretty much, yes. It's a completely different method of driving it. So we'll go down to the college.
Yeah. Where's the college?
In Poole.
Yep.
Yep. So we'll go down there.
So we being you and the engineer?
Myself and the full-time engineer will go down probably 2 or 3 times before the boat's ready to come.
Right.
To get familiar with Phil, certainly with all the main engine systems and that. So, and we'll go down and see it being built as well.
Yeah. Where's she being built?
She's being built in Lymington at the moment at SAR Composites, which is a boat yard which Joe and I took over and renamed as SAR Composites. But by 2019, every boat will be built at the headquarters at Poole, because they've got an operation going on at the moment called Operation Covertina, where they're spending about 19 million to build a new boatyard, and they're going to produce everything in-house.
Okay.
So all the maintenance and all the builds will be done by the RMI themselves instead of going out contract.
At the moment, you've got how many members of the Selsey lifeboat crew are there?
We've got 22 on the crew at the moment, with 2 probationers as well at the moment, and about 2 more about to join.
And are any of those women?
There are 2, yes. Yeah.
And are they fully qualified?
Not at the moment. One is, one isn't. One's a trainee.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do they do anything different to the men?
No, not really. They operate the radio a lot better than a lot of them.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, their radio comms are usually very good. The girls that we've had in the past, the ladies we've had in the past.
So, how many men or how many crew do you need to go before you can actually launch?
We need to go with a minimum of 5.
Yeah.
We normally, the official crew is 6, and we normally go with 7. We've got 7 seats, so we normally try and take 7 because the crew always want to go. So.
Yeah. When I first came to Selsey, you hear the maroons go off.
Uh-huh.
You don't hear the maroons don't go off now, do they?
No, we stopped firing the maroons for health and safety reasons.
Yeah.
It was a question of, I think health and safety looked at us and thought, well, there is a possibility of having an accident. Luckily we didn't, any of us, but so the RNI deemed it better to stop before we did have an accident, and were forced to stop. And we have actually had delivered to the station a new siren system, which is hopefully going to be installed before the new boathouse is built. It will be installed on this boathouse. It won't be quite as effective as the maroons, but it will certainly let the public know in the immediate area that the lifeboat's going out, whereas at the moment nobody knows.
Those of us who are old enough will remember the sirens during the war.
Yes, yeah. No, so this will be pretty distinctive.
Will the whole village be able to hear the siren?
Depending on wind direction. When we trialled it, the wind was southeast, which means the sound was being carried up into the town.
Yeah.
And Clive, who's the operations manager, his secretary could hear it in her office in the high street.
Okay.
But the wind was in the right direction. The prevailing wind is southwest, so normally it's going to be carrying it away.
Yeah.
But it's fairly loud. In fact, it's that loud that there is a warning before the warning goes off. There's a vocal warning at a slightly less.
So how are the crew alerted?
We're all alerted by a pager system now.
Okay.
Via the Coast Guard, so they can.
And is it first come, first served?
Depending on the urgency of the job.
Yeah.
If we're going to something that minutes are going to count, within 3 or 4 or 5 miles of the station, something sinking, family on board, then yes, it is. We'll go with the first few through the door. But if we've got to go 20 miles off to a yacht that's got a foul propeller and no wind, and it's just literally drifting about, which obviously we have to deal with it. We can't leave people drifting up and down the channel, but it doesn't matter if we actually arrive 10 minutes, quarter of an hour later than and wait for the crew to come. And we try and rotate them to keep everybody's interest going. As I say, they all want to go every time, so we have to try and work some kind of a system.
Are they all alerted on all their pages?
Yes. Yeah.
So you've got 24 people all rushing down.
Well, yeah, but I mean, with the nature of their work, quite a few of them work out of the village, which is why we have to maintain a level of about 22, 24 crew to try and maintain at least 9 people to respond every time. I mean, basically you've got the 2 full-timers, so we've always got 2, all their stand-ins. Yeah. So we're looking for 6 to 7 more to turn up out of the other 20.
Okay. When I first came to live in Selsey in 1970, most of the crew were fishermen.
Yeah.
Is that still true?
No. There's probably only about 25% of the crew are fishermen at the moment, and that's quite a high percentage compared to a lot of lifeboat crews.
Right.
People nowadays, they come from all walks of life, but with the advent of building the training college, a proper facility, the crews are trained. There's a lot more training to do now, and the crews are trained far better than they were when I first joined, that's for sure. We've probably got the best lifeboat crews around the country now
Really?
that we've ever had. Yeah. And that's not taking anything away from the old skills of the old fishermen.
Yeah.
But it was very localised, very much local knowledge.
Yeah.
You know, but nowadays, and as a lifeboat captain, you're expected to go out into the middle of the channel and organise a search with maybe a couple of merchant ships, a trawler, a dive boat, and coordinate the whole thing, which some of the old hands probably wouldn't. They'd never done it. But you know, it's a changing institution, sort of moving with the times.
Where's the next offshore station?
Well,
to the east or to the west?
Well, we've got Benbridge to the west on the Isle of Wight,
Right.
and Shoreham to the east for all weather boats.
Okay.
And in between those two stations, we've got Hayling and the entrance of Chichester Harbour.
Does Benbridge and Shoreham both have inshore boats as well?
They do, yes. Yeah.
Okay. So tell me about the distinction between the inshore boat and the offshore boat.
Well, basically, I mean, the name describes it.
Yeah, sure.
The inshore boat does do most of the inshore work for
Yeah.
the likes of kids in trouble on inflatables, canoeists, kayakers, sailboarders, kiteboarders, swimmers in general. And generally, within most of the jobs, I would say, are probably within eyesight. And people have spotted somebody in difficulty. They ring 999, and it's somebody 200 or 300 yards offshore being swept out by the tide or wind.
Right. Okay.
Whereas the ALB will tend to go a lot further off.
What's the ALB?
All-weather lifeboat.
Okay.
Which is the big boat, and that'll go further offshore and deal with bigger casualties, longer tows, etc.
Okay. How many shouts did you have last year, both inshore and outshore?
A very quiet year, I think, due to the financial downturn and people
Right.
not being able to fuel a lot of their motorboats. We never went to a single leisure motorboat. We went to a few yachts and commercial
Okay.
boats, but
Right.
not a single leisure one. And we did 16 with the ALB and 17 with the ILB, which we would normally reckon to be doing about 25 with the all-weather boat, the big boat, and up to about 30 with the ILB.
So the economy has restricted leisure boating then?
Well, I think it has, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think that a normal sort of average size 40 or 50 foot motor cruiser to go to the Channel Islands or France for the weekend would probably cost them £1,200 in fuel.
Yeah.
People are just trying to keep their businesses going and afloat, and they're coming down using their boats, but they're using them almost like a B&B and staying in the marina. They may go down into the Solent on a short trip at slow speed, but they're not doing the high speed crossings across the channel and then getting into trouble coming back or going, which was not the norm. It would be a breakdown.
Now you said the new boat was coming at the end of 2015?
We've been told November 2015 at the moment, yeah.
Obviously you're really looking forward to it.
We are, yeah, really looking forward to it. Especially me. I mean, it'll be a complete change of style of lifeboating for me, and probably my last sort of challenge in my lifeboating career to change the jets. So, yeah, looking forward to it.
All right. So can we come down and look then?
Oh, certainly, yeah.
All right.
More than welcome.
Well, looking forward to that then, Martin.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Hugh, thank you.
Ellis has been reading the Just So stories, and here is his review.
One of the delights of parenthood is to read to your child, provided that the story has bits hidden away for the adult. It was the art of A.A. Milne and Kenneth Grahame and Hugh Lofting, the Dr. Dolittle stories. They encouraged adults to read their stories aloud and give joy to children. In turn, the children would grow up and read to their children in turn and discover the bits for the adult. Such a book is Just So Stories by Rudyard Kipling, a master of storytelling. In these stories, Kipling displayed not only a gift for children's stories, but wrote poems to accompany his characters. And he has illustrated them as well in an economically engaging way. The great thing was that he never talked down to his listeners. He used grown-up language in a way that a child would instinctively understand, even if they'd never heard it before. So what are these stories? They purport to tell small children how things began, such as the camel's hump, and the elephant's trunk, and the hind legs of the kangaroo. Of course, they're not true at all, just fanciful inventions, but they don't tell the tale in the language of small children, yet small children seem to understand all the meanings. It's the way Kipling tells them. A small example, just a taste, and you'll need to read the whole story. This is my favourite. The Sing-Song of Old Man Kangaroo. This is how it starts. Not always was the kangaroo as now we do behold him, but a different animal, with 4 short legs. He was grey and he was woolly, and his pride was inordinate. He danced on an outcrop in the middle of Australia, and he went to the little god Nka. He went to Nka at 6 before breakfast, saying, "Make me different from all other animals by 5 this afternoon." Up jumped Nka from his seat on the sand flat and shouted, "Go away!" He was grey and he was woolly, and his pride was inordinate. He danced on a rock ledge in the middle of Australia, and he went to the middle god Nking. He went to Nking at 8 after breakfast, saying, "Make me different from all other animals. Make me also wonderfully popular by 5 this afternoon." Up jumped Nking from his burrow in the spinifex and shouted, "Go away!" He was grey and he was woolly, and his pride was inordinate. He danced on the sandbank in the middle of Australia, and he went to the big god Ngong. He went to Ngong at 10 before dinner time, saying, "Make me different from all other animals. Make me popular and wonderfully run after by 5 this afternoon." Up jumped Ngong from his bath in the salt pan and shouted, "Yes, I will." Ngong called Dingo, "Yellow dog Dingo, always hungry," dusty in the sunshine, and showed him Kangaroo. Ngong said, "Dingo, wake up, Dingo. Do you see that gentleman dancing on an ash pit? He wants to be popular and very truly run after. Dingo, make him so." Up jumped Dingo, Yellow dog Dingo, and said, "What, that cat rabbit?" Off ran Dingo, Yellow dog Dingo, always hungry, grinning like a coal scuttle, ran after Kangaroo. Off went the proud kangaroo on his 4 little legs by a bunny. This, O beloved mine, ends the first part of the tale. Now you'll want to hear, perhaps, a bit of the poetry, with the camel got his hump. And this is often read to children, or used to be when I was a teacher long, long time ago. And it goes something like this. The camel's hump is an ugly lump, which well you may see at the zoo. But uglier yet is the hump we get from having too little to do. Kiddies and grown-ups too, ooh, if we haven't enough to do, ooh, we get the hump. Camellia's hump, the hump that is black and blue. We climb out of bed with a frowsly head and a snarly, yarly voice. We shiver and scowl and we grunt and we growl at our bath and our boots and our toys. And there ought to be a corner for me, and I know there is one for you, when we get the hump, Camellia's hump, the hump that is black and blue. That's just a bit of it. And there's lots more, and beautiful illustrations. These stories were written over 100 years ago. So will they do for today's children? Well, I can say yes. There are many 30-year-olds who had these tales from me on a Friday afternoon in the Selsey primary schools, and occasionally they tell me they still remember them. Bye.
And we finish with Soul Survivor from The Essentials. Thank you for listening to this week's programme. See you next week.
I was torn and tattered, I was sliding in the dirt, when my life was shattered, it's all just getting worse. I was sinking lower from the poison that you spoke. Now I'm standing taller, 'cause I'm not the one you broke. You made me a soul survivor, a little older, a little wiser. Take what you need to take, lie as you need to lie, steal what you wanna steal. I hope you're feeling happy, act as you need to act, cry as you really need to cry, use what you need to use. I hope inside you're feeling happy. You made me so survivor, a little older, a little wiser. You made me so survivor, a little older, a little wiser. Yeah, you made me so survivor, a little older, a little wiser. You made me so survivor, a little older, a little wiser. Always who you need to hold, cheat as you need to cheat, betray what you need to betray. I hope you're feeling happy, all alone in the witching hour, when the worlds are closing in. How'd you feel about what you've done? How'd you feel about where you've been? Maybe it's a survival, a little older, a little wiser. Maybe it's a survival, a little older, a little wiser. Yeah, maybe it's a survival. No, that ain't wiser. Maybe it's a survival, a little older, a little wiser. Survivor, a little